He failed to please her, but the shocking truth behind her punishment changed his life. The morning had begun like any other. The sky above the alien planet was a vibrant hue of violet, a color that humans could not have imagined until they set foot on this foreign world. Yet as the humans stood before the alien queen, everything felt off. This was not just any moment. This was the moment where everything would change. He was a seasoned diplomat, one who had faced many challenges in his career. He had dealt with hostile alien species, navigated political tension, and found ways to solve conflicts that seemed unsolvable, but none of that had prepared him for this. Standing before the queen, he felt a sense of dread that settled deep within him, heavier than any political weight. The queen was everything a ruler should be: imposing, beautiful, and deadly. Her appearance was otherworldly: skin that shimmered like molten gold, eyes that could pierce through anyone with a single glance, and a presence that commanded attention without a word. She had the ability to make anyone bend to her will, and her reputation preceded her across the galaxy. Yet, today, he stood here, ready to fail. The task she had given him was simple in theory: secure an alliance between her people and a neighboring species that was essential for her empire's survival. The negotiations had been going smoothly, and everything seemed to be falling into place. But then the unexpected happened. The neighboring species, humans just like him, had thrown a curveball. They had demanded too much. They wanted more resources, more power, more land. And he, in his arrogance, had believed that he could handle it. He believed that he could manipulate the situation and come out with a victory for the queen. He was wrong. In his efforts to protect the queen's interests, he had failed to consider their long-term consequences. The deal he had made was flawed, leaving the queen with nothing but a bitter taste of betrayal. The humans were no longer interested in a fair deal. They saw his mistake, and they were ready to exploit it. The queen's empire had been placed at a grave disadvantage, and it was all his fault. The queen's silence was deafening as she stared at him, her gaze icy and unforgiving. His knees trembled, though he would never admit it. He had never feared anything in his life, but standing before her now, he feared the consequences of his actions more than he feared death itself. "I trusted you," the queen finally spoke, her voice cold, cutting through the air like a blade. "I trusted you to bring us victory, but you have failed me." Every word felt like a punch to his gut. She didn't shout. She didn't raise her voice. But the power in her words, the authority that dripped from them, was enough to break anyone. It was then that he realized how much he had underestimated her. She was not just a ruler. She was an entity, an unstoppable force in her own right. And now, he had angered her. His thoughts raced, but his body remained frozen in place. He could barely look at her, and his mind kept replaying his mistakes. The blunders, the missed opportunities, the promises he had made that he couldn't keep. He had failed her, and the consequences were likely far more than just a political failure. "Do you understand what this means?" she asked, her gaze never leaving him. The human nodded slowly, though he could barely speak. He did understand. It meant the end of everything he had worked for, the end of his career and the end of his dignity. He had ruined everything. And the queen? She would not tolerate failure. "Your punishment will be severe," she said, her words like ice. "The consequences of your failure are not just personal. You have failed the empire, and that cannot go unpunished." His heart sank. He had been prepared for a reprimand, perhaps even a demotion, but not this. Not this cold, calculated threat. There was no way to undo what he had done, no way to fix the damage. The alliance was broken, the resources lost. The queen would never forgive him. He couldn't even look up at her now, the weight of the moment crushing him. But as he stood there, waiting for her to pass judgment, he couldn't help but wonder why. Why such a harsh punishment? Why was she so cold? Was it simply because of his failure? Or was there something more to this queen's anger? Her eyes, glowing with an intensity that seemed to reach into his very soul, held something deeper. A secret, a hidden truth. His failure was enough to warrant punishment, of course, but the way she looked at him made him feel like there was more at play here. For the first time, the human questioned everything. Was this just about the failed negotiation? Or had he triggered something far greater than just a political mistake? He didn't know, but the Queen's silence made it clear that he would soon find out. "You will be sent to the chamber," she said at last, her words cutting through his thoughts. "You will face the consequences of your actions, and you will learn." With those final words, the human was escorted out of the grand hall, his mind racing. The Queen's punishment would not be what he expected. He had no idea what lay ahead, but one thing was certain. His life would never be the same again. The chamber was unlike any place he had ever seen. Its walls were made of dark, smooth stone, and the air was cold, carrying a scent of unfamiliar minerals. As he stepped inside, his heart pounded against his chest. There was no window, no escape, only the deep silence that enveloped him, amplifying every beat of his racing pulse. The doors closed behind him with a heavy thud, and he was left alone in the dark. His mind raced, trying to make sense of what had just happened. He had failed. He had failed the Queen, the Empire, and himself. But the punishment? He still couldn't understand why she had to be so harsh. There were many ways she could have reprimanded him, many ways she could have made him pay for his mistake without resorting to this, but she had chosen this. Why? The sound of footsteps echoed in the chamber, breaking the silence. He turned quickly, hoping for some sort of explanation, but what he saw instead sent a chill down his spine. Two guards, tall and silent, stepped forward. They were dressed in dark armor, their faces hidden behind visors, and their movements were precise, almost mechanical. One of the guards handed him a simple metallic bracelet. He didn't understand what it was for, but he was too afraid to ask. They attached it to his wrist without saying a word and gestured for him to follow them. The chamber, it seemed, was just the beginning. The path ahead twisted and turned, leading him down into the depths of the alien palace. The further they went, the colder it became. He could feel the weight of the punishment bearing down on him, pressing on his chest. He knew that whatever lay ahead would be far worse than anything he had ever experienced. They reached a large circular room, its center illuminated by an eerie blue glow. In the middle of the room was a strange pedestal, hovering just above the floor. There was no visible mechanism to support it, and yet it floated with an unnerving grace. He was pushed toward it by the guards. "Kneel," one of them ordered, his voice low and menacing. Without thinking, he dropped to his knees, his mind too fogged with fear to argue. He had no choice. The bracelet on his wrist hummed with energy, and the pedestal began to spin slowly, its blue glow intensifying. The walls around him seemed to pulse, as though the entire chamber was alive watching him. "What is this?" he whispered, though no one was there to answer. He didn't know why he asked the question. Maybe he just needed something, anything, to break the silence that had been smothering him. The guards said nothing, but the energy in the room grew more intense. The pedestal began to hover higher, its glow now blinding. The human could feel it, a heavy pull, a weight in the air that made it hard to breathe. Suddenly, the light around him shattered like glass. A sharp, high-pitched sound filled the room, sending a wave of panic through him. His hands trembled, and the bracelet around his wrist tightened as though it was digging into his skin. The guards stood motionless, their eyes locked on him. But there was something different in their stance now. The air was thick with tension, and he could feel it. The weight of his failure. The weight of everything he had done wrong. A voice, low, haunting, echoed through the room, seemingly coming from nowhere. It was the Queen's voice. "You thought your failure was small," the voice said, its tone flat and emotionless. "You thought you could play with the fates of others and walk away untouched. But this punishment is not for you. It is for all who dared to think themselves above the Empire. And it is for you, human, to understand what true power is." The pedestal began to hum louder, and the walls of the chamber seemed to pulse with each beat of the strange sound. The human could feel it in his bones, a pressure, an unbearable weight that seemed to threaten to crush him. "I am not cruel. The queen's voice continued, though it sounded colder with each passing word. I am simply ensuring that you understand the consequences of what you've done. You have failed the Empire, and now you must face the truth of what that means. He wanted to scream. He wanted to ask why. Why had she done this? Why punish him like this? But the words wouldn't come. The weight of her power pressed down on him, silencing everything. And then, as quickly as it had begun, the pressure vanished. The pedestal stopped spinning, the hum quieted, and the chamber returned to its eerie silence. The human gasped for air, his chest heaving. He looked around, but the guards had already turned and walked away, leaving him alone once more. His knees shook as he stood, his body weak from the experience. The bracelet around his wrist had stopped glowing, but it hadn't released its grip on him. He could feel it now, its presence, the sense that it was somehow tethering him to something. To what, he couldn't tell. As he stood there, trying to regain his bearings, a dark thought crept into his mind. Had the queen truly punished him, or had she shown him something? Something far greater than the consequences of his failure? He didn't know, but one thing was clear. This was far from over. The punishment had only just begun. The truth behind it all would soon come to light, and he was already beginning to realize that nothing would ever be the same again. The days blurred together, each one indistinguishable from the last as the human struggled to adapt to his new reality. The chamber he had been confined to felt more like a prison than a place of punishment. Though the walls were decorated with intricate carvings, they did little to soothe him. The coldness of the room had seeped into his bones, but it was the weight of the silence that truly crushed him. He was no longer a diplomat. He was no longer an important figure. He was just a prisoner of his own failure, trapped in a world of his making. The bracelet around his wrist, which had once felt like a simple piece of metal, now felt like an anchor, binding him to his fate. It hummed quietly at times, its presence always there, a reminder of the queen's power and the price of his failure. Yet, despite the silence and isolation, something strange began to happen. There were moments when the bracelet's hum grew louder, almost as if it were calling out to him, drawing him towards something he couldn't yet understand. The room was empty, save for the faint sound of the bracelet. The guards had stopped coming as frequently. They left him alone, perhaps assuming that he had already learned his lesson. But he couldn't shake the feeling that there was something more to this punishment. It was as if the queen had something far deeper planned for him, something beyond his comprehension. He sat on the floor, his back against the cold stone wall, staring into the darkness. The air was thick with tension, and he could feel it pressing against him. It wasn't just the atmosphere of the chamber. It was something else, something that lingered beneath the surface. There was a power in this place, a force that was almost tangible. And then, as if answering his unspoken thoughts, the hum of the bracelet grew louder. The room flickered for a moment as if reality itself had shifted. A soft glow appeared in the corner of his eye, and he turned his head slowly, heart pounding in his chest. A figure materialized in the shadows. It was the queen. She stood there, her figure bathed in an ethereal light that made her seem both otherworldly and powerful. Her eyes, usually cold and calculating, were softer now, filled with something the human couldn't quite place. It wasn't anger or resentment, but something else, a kind of sadness, regret. It was difficult to tell. The queen had always been an enigma, but now she seemed even more distant, as if she was hiding something from him. She stepped forward, her movements graceful and deliberate. The air around her seemed to hum with energy, the power that radiated from her almost suffocating. The human rose to his feet, instinctively trying to stand tall in her presence, though he knew it was futile. This was no longer about diplomacy. This was about survival. "You think you understand what I've done to you," the queen spoke, her voice calm but filled with an underlying tension. "But you don't, not yet." The human didn't respond. He wasn't sure what to say. He had failed. He had been punished. But something in her words made him realize that there was more to this than simple retribution. "Your punishment was necessary, yes," she continued, "but it was not just for the failure you caused. There is more at play here than you know." The human's brow furrowed. "What do you mean?" The queen's gaze softened, and for the first time, he saw a flicker of something in her eyes, something vulnerable. "You see, I have ruled for centuries. I have watched kingdoms rise and fall, empires crumble, and people come and go. I have seen it all. But there is one thing I have never been able to control: Fate. The human blinked, confused. Fate? Yes, she said, her voice almost a whisper now.
Fate is a powerful thing.
It shapes everything, even the most powerful of us, and I have spent my entire life trying to master it, to bend it to my will. But fate, it has a mind of its own. It chooses paths that we cannot predict, no matter how much we try to control them. The human didn't understand. He was still reeling from the harshness of his punishment, still grappling with the weight of his failure. Fate, what did that have to do with anything? You have been chosen, the Queen said suddenly, her eyes locking onto his. Chosen by fate. You think this is just about a political mistake, a simple failure in your mission, but it is not. Your failure, your punishment, it was all part of a much larger plan. The words echoed in the human's mind. Chosen by fate? What was she talking about? The Queen stepped closer, her presence overwhelming. The Empire is dying, she said, her voice tight with emotion. I have led it for so long, but I am no longer enough. The power I once had is slipping away, and I am losing my grip. There is only one way to save it, one way to restore the balance. And that is where you come in. The human took a step back, unsure of what to say. Me, but I'm just a failure. I can't help you. You are more than that, the Queen said softly, her gaze never leaving him. You were chosen to be the one who would fix what is broken, the one who would restore what has been lost. You have the strength within you, though you don't know it yet. And the bracelet. It is the key. The human's mind raced. The bracelet? The thing that had tormented him, that had bound him to this place. It was the key? The Queen's voice dropped to a whisper, as if sharing a secret meant only for him. You are not just a human diplomat, and I am not just a queen. We are both part of something much larger, something that transcends our understanding. This punishment, it was never truly about you. It was about preparing you for what's to come. The room seemed to close in on him as the weight of her words settled in. His failure, his punishment, was it all part of some greater plan? A plan that he hadn't even realized he was a part of? He could feel the weight of it, the uncertainty, the fear that came with knowing that everything had changed. The Queen stepped back, her expression unreadable. You will understand soon enough. But for now you must trust me. Fate has chosen you, and now you must accept what comes next. And with that, she vanished, leaving the human alone once more, the echo of her words lingering in the air. The human sat motionless in the empty chamber, the Queen's words reverberating through his mind. Fate had chosen him. He couldn't shake the thought. The weight of the statement was suffocating, and the more he thought about it, the more he felt a strange pull in his chest, an urgency to understand what lay ahead. But the questions kept growing. How could he, a simple diplomat who had failed so miserably, be the one to restore an empire? What did this have to do with him? And what was the Queen's true role in all of this? The days passed slowly, each one blending into the next as he wrestled with his thoughts. The guards came less often now, as though they too had grown accustomed to his presence here. They no longer spoke to him, leaving him in silence to ponder the mysterious power he had been thrust into. He had no idea how to handle it. Was he supposed to be the one to fix everything? Was he even capable of it? The bracelet on his wrist had become a constant reminder of his failure, and of the Queen's strange and unsettling expectations. It pulsed softly, its hum never quite fading, like a heartbeat from another world. He could feel it calling him, urging him toward something, but he couldn't figure out what. Then one night everything changed. The familiar flicker of light appeared again in the corner of his vision. This time he was ready. He stood quickly, the hairs on the back of his neck standing on end. A figure emerged from the shadows, and it was not the Queen this time. The figure was tall but not imposing like the Queen. Instead, he exuded an air of quiet strength, as though his very presence commanded respect. His eyes glinted with the same intensity the Queen had once displayed. But there was something else, something warmer, almost human in his gaze. You, the figure said, his voice low, calm, and surprisingly familiar. I've been waiting for you. The human's heart raced as the figure stepped forward. Who are you? He demanded. What do you want? The figure smiled, his expression softening as he gestured to the bracelet on the human's wrist. I am here to help you understand. The time has come for you to realize what you truly are, what you are meant to be. You are no longer just a diplomat. You are much more than that now. The human recoiled slightly. I don't understand. The Queen— Yes, the Queen, the figure interrupted. She has placed you on a path and now it's time for you to see it. But you have to trust me. You have to let go of what you were before, of who you thought you were. That man is gone. The words hit him like a hammer, and for a moment he felt like he was losing himself in the weight of it all. I'm not the man I was? What does that even mean? The figure's gaze hardened as though he could see straight through the human's doubts. It means you're the one who will save the Queen's empire. But first you must stop running from what you've been chosen to do. The human took a step back, trying to wrap his head around everything. But I failed. I messed everything up. I'm not the one you want. The figure took a slow, deliberate step forward. No, you are exactly what's needed. The bracelet on your wrist? It's not a punishment. It's a bond. It connects you to the heart of the Queen's power. The Queen has known this from the beginning. She has seen your potential, what you could become, what you will become. And now you must choose. The human's head spun. His mind couldn't catch up with what was being said. The bracelet, something that had once felt like a symbol of his failure, was actually a connection to something much greater. Was it possible? Was it really true? You're telling me I have some kind of power? He whispered, as if saying the words aloud would make them real. Not power per se, the figure replied. You have the potential to tap into the very source of the Empire's strength. The Queen's strength. It's not just about leadership or even politics. It's about something much older, much deeper. A force that has been hidden for centuries, waiting for the right person to awaken it. And that person is you. A chill ran down the human's spine. The words felt impossible. But how? How am I supposed to do that? I'm not a hero. I'm not the one to save anything. The figure smiled, a quiet understanding in his eyes. You're not a hero yet, but you will be. You just need to let go of your doubts. The Empire will crumble without someone like you. The Queen has placed her faith in you. All you have to do now is accept it. The human's mind raced as the weight of the situation sank in. He had failed the Queen. He had failed everything he once believed in. And now, he was being told that he was the only one who could save it. Was it true? Was he really the one who could restore the Empire's glory? He looked down at the bracelet again, the metallic surface glinting in the low light. It was no longer just a symbol of his failure. It was a key, a connection to something far beyond anything he could have imagined. The thought terrified him. But there was something else, too. A flicker of something within him, something he had never known was there. The figure stepped back, his face unreadable. The Queen has given you the tools. It's time for you to use them. Your choice is simple. You can accept this power, or you can walk away. But know this, if you walk away, the Empire will fall. The fate of the galaxy will rest on your shoulders. The human felt the weight of the decision pressing on him. Could he do this? Could he embrace the destiny that had been forced upon him? He didn't have all the answers. But as he stood there in the quiet chamber, staring at the bracelet that now seemed to pulse with power, one thing was clear. His life would never be the same. He closed his eyes, took a deep breath, and made his choice. I accept. And in that moment, something within him shifted. The room seemed to hum with energy, and the bracelet glowed brighter than ever before. The human felt the power surge through him, felt the connection to the Empire, to the Queen, to the very essence of the universe itself. He was no longer just a man who had failed. He was something more, something powerful. The figure nodded as if he had known all along that this would happen. Good. Now, we begin. And with that, the human's journey truly began. The world around the human seemed to change in an instant. The chamber, once a place of confinement and darkness, now felt almost alive. A strange, subtle energy filled the air like electricity just before a storm. It thrummed within him, coursing through his veins, a sensation both alien and familiar. As the connection deepened, the weight of it became more apparent. This was no longer just about survival. It was about transformation. His transformation. His body felt different, as though it was shifting, adapting to something he couldn't quite understand. The bracelet around his wrist pulsed in time with his heartbeat, its hum now steady, almost soothing. The human could feel it. The power that had once been a distant idea now suddenly within reach. The energy that had been dormant within him began to wake. He didn't know how it worked, but he could feel it building, becoming a part of him. The figure who had guided him stood in silence, watching him, as if waiting for something. The air in the chamber had become dense, thick with anticipation. The human felt the force within him growing stronger, a surge of power that filled his chest with an overwhelming intensity. But it wasn't just power, it was something more. It was a purpose. The realization hit him hard, almost like a slap to the face. He was no longer just a diplomat. He was something else now. He was the future of the Empire. You feel it, don't you? The figure's voice broke the silence, calm but filled with an unspoken understanding. The human didn't respond immediately. His thoughts were clouded, his mind racing. What did this mean? What was happening to him? Was this the price of his failure? Or was this something greater? You're not the same person you were, the figure continued. And you never will be again. But this power, it's not just for you. It's for the Queen, for the Empire. You were chosen because you are the one who can restore balance, who can lead this galaxy into a new age. The Queen knew it. And now you know it too. The human staggered back slightly, his knees buckling under the weight of it all. The transformation was more intense than anything he could have prepared for. His body was still adjusting, every cell seemingly shifting to accommodate the new energy coursing through him. It wasn't painful, but it was disorienting. He looked down at his hands, watching as they seemed to glow with an otherworldly light, veins shimmering with the same energy that had once only been felt by the Queen. It was not the same power that came from weapons or armies. This was a deeper force, something that resonated with the very essence of existence itself, and it was now a part of him. The figure stepped closer, his expression unreadable. You're wondering how this power works, aren't you? How it's connected to you? The human nodded, still trying to find words to express what he was feeling. He couldn't explain it. He couldn't describe the sensation of it. All he knew was that it felt like a piece of himself he never knew existed had suddenly been awakened, as if he had been reborn in an instant. The bracelet is the key, the figure said, as if reading his thoughts. It connects you to the heart of the Queen's empire. It binds you to the very source of the Queen's power. But more importantly, it connects you to the people, to the galaxy itself. This is not about domination, not about conquering. This is about harmony, balance. You have the ability to unify, to heal what has been broken. The human's breath caught in his throat. Harmony? Healing? This wasn't what he had expected. He had imagined power, control, dominance. But this was something entirely different. But I'm not a ruler, the human said, his voice hoarse. I don't know how to lead. The figure smiled faintly, his eyes glinting with an almost knowing look. You don't need to know everything right now. What matters is that you are ready. The Queen chose you because you have the heart of a leader. You have the courage to do what others cannot. And now you must decide. Will you accept this power, this responsibility? Will you use it for the good of the Empire? Or will you let it slip through your fingers? The human's heart pounded in his chest. The weight of the decision was unbearable. But deep down, he knew there was no choice. This was his destiny. He had been brought here to this moment for a reason. He had failed once, yes, but he had been given a second chance, a chance to become something greater. He clenched his fists, feeling the power surge through his body. It was no longer just a strange foreign force, it was part of him now. And with it came a newfound clarity. He understood now that he had the ability to heal the wounds of the Empire, to mend what had been broken. The Queen had given him the tools, but it was up to him to decide how to use them. I accept, the human said, his voice steady and strong, filled with resolve. I accept this power, and I will use it to restore the Empire. The figure nodded, satisfaction flickering in his gaze. Good, you have made the right choice. The human felt something inside him shift as if a door had been opened. The power within him intensified, filling him with a sense of purpose he had never known before. It was overwhelming, but it was also invigorating. For the first time in his life, he felt like he had a true purpose, something far greater than himself. You are ready, the figure said, his voice filled with quiet pride. Now go to her. The Queen is waiting for you. With those words, the human knew what he had to do. His journey was far from over. In fact, it was only just beginning. The transformation had begun, and now it was time for him to take his place by the Queen's side, to become the leader he was always meant to be. He stepped forward, his heart filled with a sense of power and purpose. The Empire awaited him. The galaxy awaited him. And for the first time, he was ready to meet the future head-on.